So, know your audience. What are your audience expectations for this presentation? What do you want them to learn, to know, to feel? How do you want them to come away from this? What is your purpose? And we practice and do presentations in a very simplistic way. It's a classroom of fellow students, and we're doing a presentation on a topic related to class. I'm doing presentations to a group of students to inform and educate, provide you hopefully with the things that you will learn from and be able to use to study and apply your own information. Maybe your audience is your department at work, and you're trying to make sure they are aware of some important thing that's going on, or you're trying to train them on some new inspection technique, or you're trying to give some budget information. It's really important to know your audience, and an understanding of human psychology with respect to marketing, I think, is really important, because I don't care who it is. It is a mini marketing campaign whenever you give a presentation. And if you look at it that way, I think you can be more powerful, more impactful in your presentation. But it's not just about the audience, it's also about the presenter. What are your expectations? What do you expect the outcome to be? And if you really think about these three questions, who is my audience? What is my purpose? And what do I expect to get out of this? What do I expect them to get out of this? You can be much more effective in creating the message. Remember that when doing a presentation, you really should be thinking about, all right, right at the beginning, I need to tell them, tell my audience why we're here, what I'm doing. Maybe have an agenda slide, a summary slide, and use that as an opportunity to make sure that they have an expectation of what they're about to experience or learn or see. And that agenda slide, or whatever you title it, is your initial opportunity to get them prepared for what they are going to see. It also helps create memories, so they remember things. If you start strong with a short, to the point, this is what's important, they're more likely to remember that. It's going to help create an impression and a long-term memory by having that agenda or something of that sort at the beginning. And next, you go into the meat, the weeds, the deep end of the pool of your presentation, and you start showing all the detail. And then you come back to a summary slide. What are the important takeaway points? What really mattered? What do I want you to walk away with? And so you're really setting up your audience for what to remember. If nothing else, at the beginning, you're setting them up to be prepared, to notice, to be ready, to be paying attention at the important points of your presentation. And you can do a little bit to also emphasize during that, when you hit some of those high points during the presentation, you're trying to set them up for remembering the important points. And then at the very end, people are going to get the summary slide with the last opportunity to tell them, this is what you just saw. This is the message I want you to take home with you. And by setting up the beginning and expectations and then the ending, the summary, I think you have a much more powerful presentation. So adding slides, you can certainly add from the ribbon. There's an insert slide option in the ribbon, and you can also right click in the slides window, and new slides will be on a pop-up menu. There's something called the slides panel, displays the thumbnails of the slides when in normal view. So if I just go to PowerPoint, and I had the last one I did for another class was winemaking introduction or intro. And so here's what they're talking about. Here's the slides in thumbnail view, and I can make that smaller or bigger up to a point. This is at the biggest it gets, depending on how much room you need. And I prefer, unless I'm really trying to maximize the size of my workspace, I like bigger views, bigger thumbnails. And so that's the slides panel in normal view. But there are other views as well. You notice I'm here in normal view. When I go into the view ribbon, there's the slide sorter view. So all of them are in thumbnails. The notes page. And this can not only be handy, notes can be handy for you, but notes can also be handy for printing. If you're going to supply a printed PowerPoint presentation and provide it to somebody, you can include the notes. Reading view. And with reading view, I click on escape to get out of it, the escape key in the upper left. The slide master. What is the slide master? This is the slide upon which all other slides are based. So when you're creating a theme, you're creating a slide master. And if you want to know what your slide master looks like, you can go into slide master view. And now I'm in the slide master ribbon, which has its own information, its own tools. Handout master, depends on what you want, but here your handout master allows you to set up how many slides you might have per page. And so handout master lets you create handouts. Is 6 slides on a page good or not? And there are different ways to create this handout master. And it talks about the orientation you might have on the pages and other details. I don't want to get too much into the details here, but in particular, you know, do you want 1 slide per page? Oops, not portraits, excuse me. In landscape mode like this. So I set up the page as landscape and the slide as landscape. Almost always slides are landscape. And I can do 2 slides. I can do 4 slides, which is often what I like to do. Now with multiple slides on the page, maybe you can use a portrait handout. So when portrait, I would likely do either 6 slides or slides with notes. Um, and is there anything else I want to show here? There was something I was just thinking, and I'm drawing a blank. So rather than staring here, I'm going to get out of this. Anyway, handout view. And the notes master as well. There is a master page for notes so that you can have how your notes are going to look with different levels of text as you put them into your notes. So you can set up your notes. I've never bothered with that kind of detail. And anyway, view, go back to normal. I think I played around with that enough. So I looked at all these different views, and the slide sorter view is one that's handy. I showed you that very briefly, but you can rearrange the slides in that view very easily. It's a little more tough in normal view because you've got everything as one long list, and you can't see from beginning to end. You can only see, depending on how big the slides are, 6, 10 slides at a time, and not necessarily the whole presentation. Bulleted lists, there are different levels, and based on the theme that you have established, each bullet will change style potentially, or at least change size potentially, based on the rules of your theme. So how much is it indented, which font size, which bullet. And that gives visual clues to your audience, and they can see the levels. You can turn bullets on and off. You don't have to have them, but they are helpful in many cases to help your audience visualize what you're looking at, see the different levels. You can promote or decrease, demote or increase the indent. So increasing the indent moves further to the right, demoting further to the right, promoting or making a smaller indent moves it further to the left. Nine standard layouts in PowerPoint. So I've already mentioned the title slide where it has title and subtitle. You can always add more than that. You can add any text box or any element that you want to any slide. So just because you start with a particular slide style doesn't mean you can't customize it to a great deal. Title and content. So it has a title across the top and then some sort of content, and then it lets you click on what kind of content you want to put on that page. 2 content items, title only, picture with caption, again, lots of choices. And if you make the wrong choice, you can always pick another one or manually make the slide do what you want. So these 9 presets at least give you a starting point that will start with blank boxes, and you just click on them to fill in the information. And so here is the layout on the home ribbon, and you can see these 9 based on the master slide, based on the theme. And if I were to add a new Comparison. Bingo. There it is. My new comparison, and Control Z. That's my title slide. Let me do it this way. I'm gonna click in between these and say new slide. And now that I've got a blank slide, that's a more appropriate place. Layout, comparison. So now you can see it better without all the garbage from my title slide. I didn't want to change the layout of my title slide. I wanted to show you a layout of a new slide. So it's still blank. You can see in the thumbnail view, it's blank. But when I look at it in my creation view, in my editing pane, I have these boxes where I can click to add titles and text and other elements. Hey, I want to add a chart. I want to insert a table. You can click on these. I want to insert a media clip. I can insert all kinds of things just by clicking on these things if I want, or don't click on them if I don't need that. Okay. Those are the layouts. Delivering your slideshow. Peer is a method of mentally planning your slideshow. Pace, emphasis, eye contact, relax. And this is often something that you might see in a speech class or a presentation training. I don't normally think of it in these terms, but it is a good way to remember your peers. I'm going to deliver a message to my peers. What does that mean? Pace, the speed at which you do it. When I'm teaching, sometimes I slow down and pause quite intentionally. And sometimes you might go, Triana lost his train of thought there. He stopped, like I just did. That was on purpose. When I when I mix up the pace and I stop, sometimes at odd ways, at odd times, and I have this break in my sentence, I might catch your attention. You're like paying attention to what I'm saying. You're waiting for that next word. If I go too slow, then maybe you're not going to be engaged. And I generally go slow compared to what I would in other situations when I'm teaching, because you're trying to take notes. You're trying to wrap your head around this. I hope you're taking notes. You should be taking notes. You're a college student. That's your job. And so I'm trying to be very careful about understanding my audience in a class, take my time, go slow, emphasize things, give people time to write notes. But there are other times when I'm talking about something that I'm excited and I'm not expecting a lot of notes, and I want to keep the enthusiasm higher. And I'm presenting to maybe a new group of potential Hartnell students, and I'm over at Everett Alvarez High School in a classroom with one of the teachers there and talking to the students, and I want to be excited. And it's not like I'm being fake. I am excited. I am enthusiastic. And so I'm talking at a different pace. It's a different message. I want to get them energized, and I want them to feel my energy. I want them to go, wow, this is kind of cool. There's some stuff going on at Hartnell that I want to be a part of. And then I get the hell out of there as quickly as possible so they don't have this gray-haired dude trying to tell them to come to Hartnell, and get one of my students to help me talk, somebody that the other students can relate to, somebody their own age or close to their own age rather than me. But that's a different topic. That's not part of the peer. But pace, very important. Emphasis, I already gave you some of that. The agenda slide and the summary slide is helping to set up what is important. And then when you get to those important things during your presentation, How do you emphasize it? You emphasize it with your body language, your tone of voice. This is really important. If you don't get this, you can't possibly understand the rest. This is the foundation of this presentation. And if you've been going slow and talking in a relatively calm point of or tone of voice, and all of a sudden, this is important, your audience is going to go, I'm paying attention. You emphasize the things through visual cues, using animation, video, color, font size, and the other things like your tone of voice, your body language, your body position. Walk out into the audience during something really important. Stand up taller. Walk over, if the screen's right there, walk over and stand right in front of the screen and go, look, right there. This is important. Whatever it takes, emphasize what's important. Eye contact, also important. You need to be looking around the room. You don't want to be staring at people individually, but you want to be catching people's eye on a regular basis all around the room. And your voice in general should be talking to the person in the back of the room. Especially be aware if there's distracting noises. There's a fan, there's the air conditioning fan or something like that. There's a parking lot outside, coming through the window, you get some noise. There's machinery. Maybe you're at a facility that has machinery going, and you're fine there in front of the people in the first 8 feet from you, but you don't realize how hard you are to hear in the back. So eye contact not only helps you connect to the audience, it helps make sure that you're reaching the audience. If you're making eye contact in the back, you automatically start to speak to that person. You make sure you're projecting to that person, and you're aware if they're paying attention. Oops, go away. It's really hard to make eye contact with somebody who's on Snapchat on their phone. They're not looking at you. It's really hard to make eye contact with somebody who fell asleep. And if they think you're constantly looking at them, they're going to be paying more attention, more likely. And relax. Again, relaxing is important. You've got to be comfortable, and that takes practice. Now, one last thing I want to add here. You want to be careful about certain elements. Sound effects and animations can become gimmicky, and the audience almost is eye-rolling rather than becoming engaged. Use things sparingly. And there's no right answer for that. Sometimes a lot of animation can be good. One of the online presentation programs that some of my students have done wonderful jobs in is Prezi, Prezi. I haven't seen a Prezi in maybe 2 years, and so I don't know if it's fallen out of favor. I don't know if people aren't learning about it, but it uses animation from every single slide to the next, but it does it in a creative and very effective way. Essentially, a Prezi presentation is a world of information, and it zooms in and out and slides over to look at your world of information that you're creating. And all of your slides are part of this like giant board, and it zooms into each of your pieces of information, and it's kind of cool. You might take a look at Prezi. I assume it's still out there. Prezi presentation software. Bingo. Now, I think you save it as a, you can save it as a movie type of a file, but you can't really create a PowerPoint out of it. It doesn't work that way. It's an animation. It's a continuous animation with pauses and timing, but really, really cool presentations that many of my students have done over the years. Slide sorter, I think that's, or excuse me, a slideshow toolbar rather, excuse me. I don't think there's anything I have to point out there. I think you can all figure out and navigate those. And that is the basics of creating and delivering a presentation.